there was no big plan for this is what I'm going to do, and I want to follow these footsteps or do this thing or do that thing. It was college was a discovery exercise for me. It was like this cheat code almost that I had where I was, early in my career learning, just starting to learn the ropes, but also with exposure to, some people with some really excellent long-term experience and some knowledge and wisdom that, I carry to today. What are the things that we are going to do and we're not going to do that are going to make us other? And, I'm really proud 10 and a half years later that those things that we decided to do at the beginning of the business are still the way that we do business today.
And we are recording. Mr. Matt Jenkins, thank you so much for stopping by today. It's great to have you.
Thanks so much for having me, Victor. Happy to be here.
Oh, no, the pleasure is all mine. I know we've been trying to get this on the books for a while. We had to back it up a little bit. So thank you for your patience for that. So I'm really looking forward to our chat today. So, look, let's jump right into it. So, you're one of the founding partners of Other. So, explain to us what Other is and what your role there is as a founding partner.
Yeah, we're an integrated media and creative agency based here in Toronto. So we run the media planning, buying, strategy, execution from the top of the funnel down to the bottom. So we do a lot of planning and buying strategy related to traditional media, video, out of home, digital out of home, all of that sort of the top mid funnel. And then we have a really excellent, strong performance practice as well, where our team is buying Google and Meta and a variety of other performance platforms like that. We also have an important creative department of the organization. So and it's principally a performance focused creative division of the business. So it's really built for creative assets that perform. And we have a sort of proprietary solution that we've built there over time specific to the channels that we run. And it's worked really well the last couple of years. There's a lot changing in creative, and we've been feeling good about how we've kept up.
Oh,
As
sorry, go ahead. Keep going. Didn't mean to cut you off there. Keep going, sir.
No problem. As for me myself, I'm one of the founding partners, and so been there since day one. Really, my job today is lead the team, continue to build and grow the team, and then on the service delivery and operations side, continue to make sure that we're keeping up with what's popular, what's working, what's not working. We're developing our service offering to make sure that our clients are happy and having success.
I love having founders on the show. And as always, we go back to the beginning, but something that I'm starting to notice, this is going to be, I think, episode 134. And the more and more founders I've had on, do you know what you guys have in common? You,
Couldn't guess.
you
No.
come from small towns. So let's start with that because you're from a small town north of Toronto with what, roughly a thousand people, if even that when you were growing up?
I think slightly larger than that. It would have been 3,000 when I was growing up, and it's growing quickly still. But yeah, I love growing up in a small town, something I'm very proud of, even though I've lived in the city for quite a few years now. I had a wonderful upbringing there. Still, my parents still live there. Still very much friends with a lot of the folks that I went to my early days of school with, and it's something I'm proud of for sure.
Give us the name. What small town was it?
It's called Mount Albert. It's just
Mount
about
Albert.
15 minutes east of Newmarket. Yeah.
Okay, 15 minutes east of Newmarket. So it's not too far from Toronto because Newmarket is one of the new suburbs of Toronto. It just seems like we
You
keep
got
moving
it.
suburbia farther and farther.
And then Mount Albert is a suburb of Newmarket, you could say.
There we go. Absolutely. You could say that as well. But okay, so you mentioned that you lived there most of your life. Have I got that correct?
Yep, correct.
So the first time you moved away, I guess, was when you went away to London for college.
That's right. Yeah. So went to school. Well, went to school in Newmarket, high school in Newmarket, and then after that, moved on and went to Fanshawe in London.
And two things that kept you busy growing up. If I got this right, you were a big hockey player, but you were also a cyclist as well.
Yes. So played a ton of hockey growing up. I was one of those kids who 5 to 7 nights a week was playing hockey, whether it was high school or my club team. That's where, I had a lot of friends. Um, Spent a ton of time at the rink, as did, my brother, the same sort of thing. We're a hockey family, first and foremost. My wife actually laughs at me because she'll often ask, like, "Did you do this when you were growing up? And did you do this? Or did you do this?" And I'm like, "No, no, no, I didn't do that thing." And my answer is, she's like, "Why not?" My answer is always, "I was at the rink. I was playing hockey. that's what we did. And I'm incredibly thankful for that. It might sound one dimensional, but I think, what it built was a massive sense of being a team player, understanding what it's like to be part of a team. That was huge. I played at a high enough level also to see people go on and have a lot of success in their career and end up playing, in the NHL and making a real life out of it. And so seeing what it took for those people to get to that level has continued to be an inspiration for me, throughout my career, and especially as they get to the end of their professional careers. And so, yeah, hockey was a huge, huge part of it. And cycling, I wouldn't say specifically cycling, but growing up, we were in the country somewhat, or a small town, and so spent a lot of time mountain biking, riding bicycles, motocross or motorcycles as well. Was part of our life, and still is. It's still a passion of mine today. I ride my bicycle to work as much as I can. It's not quite the same as growing up in Mount Albert, but it gets the fix a little bit. And so yeah, those were really the things that I spent my winters playing hockey and my summers on my bicycle.
You said motocross. You have my attention right there. What kind of bike did you have growing up?
A couple. I mean, you kind of go from brand to brand and size to size when you're growing up. I started out with a couple of Hondas when I was younger, and then I think the last one that I had, I don't have a motocross bike anymore, nor should I be on one. Was Suzuki 250F, and so that was fun and dangerous, to be quite honest, thing to do. I had lots of friends who took it pretty far. That wasn't me, but I certainly enjoyed my time doing that.
Did you start off on a two-stroke before going to a four-stroke, or were you 100% on
You
four
you
strokes?
sound like somebody who has some motocross background knowledge. I started on a two-stroke. I was part of an era where the motorcycles themselves were transitioning from being primarily two strokes into four strokes, and so I was part of that natural progression. Those Hondas were two strokes, and then the Suzuki was a four stroke.
You gotta love those oil burners. It's like literally like preparing your chainsaw, practically, getting that mixture right.
I actually miss that part of the two strokes. The four strokes are a little more boring. You just dump the gas in and go. There's no mixing or anything like that.
I love that you said that. I wanna take a step back and talk about your hockey career because you were playing and practicing 6 to 7 days a week. Was there a certain point where maybe something else came up in life that took you away from hockey? Or was there a certain point in your hockey career where you said, I'm not going to the NHL, or I just don't have the time to try to pursue it any further, and then you decided to dial back and focus on something else?
Yeah, I don't think there was something that, came up along the way, um, that made me decide that I didn't wanna spend that much time at the rink. I loved it. That's where all my friends were. That was what was natural to me. I enjoyed doing it. The competitive side of it was, massively formative for me. Um, I think part of it you nailed, which is you just get to a certain point in your career and you're like, all right, this isn't necessarily going to be what I'm going to do for a job. And I think especially playing at the level I was at, it was very obvious, what level you needed to be at in order to turn it into a career, and that wasn't me. And so, um, you have good parents, and they direct you and say, want to start thinking about, what you're going to do with your education and what you might want to do with your career, and that type of thing. So a fairly natural progression for me. It wasn't like one day I had to have some big realization. I always knew that hockey was mostly just a skill and character builder, and it was, something that I enjoyed, and it wasn't necessarily going to be a career or profession really beyond minor hockey.
I'm gonna try to guess what position you played. Was it goalie by any chance?
Funny you ask, because I played goalie up until I was about, good question, maybe 10 or 12. I played goalie. And then I decided I didn't like it. And
Really?
so
Okay.
I was playing actually fairly competitively as a goalie, and I went back and I started from scratch as a player. I went back playing house league in my early teens, and then kind of worked my way back up to be able to play at a high level again as a player. So kind of a interesting road in hockey for me.
The reason I bring that up is I had another entrepreneur on a couple episodes back, Bryce North. He runs a PR agency, and he played hockey competitively like yourself and got to a certain level, and he was a goalie. And the interesting that kind of came up in our conversation was is that you really have no margin for error for being when it comes to being a goalie. And to put that in perspective, if you're the second best defenseman on the team, you're likely to still be in the starting lineup. But if you're the second best goalie, you might not see any play time at all.
Yeah, I would also add that standing between the pipes and having people shoot rubber at you is like analogous to being an entrepreneur in some place where you're just standing there taking it. And so I could see why there might be a lot of commonalities between people who are goaltenders. It might be common for people who are goaltenders to end up becoming entrepreneurs. There's some similarities for sure.
I imagine you punished yourself as a Leafs fan as well?
Yes, and I continue to this day.
Yeah, I'm not a big hockey guy, but I was around a couple of people who were really complaining about how this season is going, and I thought it started off well, but I looked at NHL.com and it might have started off well, but it is not going well for them at all.
No, it is not. It's especially when you have the backdrop of what the Blue Jays have just done, and what they managed to accomplish with the team that they have on the field and the resources that they have there. You look at that in contrast to what the Maple Leafs have been able to accomplish with what seems like so much more resource and capability, and um, it's tough to watch. It's tough to watch, and I've been a fan my entire life, as is the rest of my family. And yeah, it's difficult, but I'm forever will stay optimistic. There's no chance of me jumping off the ship, and we'll continue. And hopefully, things turn around the next little bit here, the next couple of years.
Speaking of your family, why do you credit your parents as being the biggest influences in your life?
Uh, Many reasons. Could do a whole podcast on that. Probably. Um, Comes down to, I think, my parents just for my whole upbringing provided for myself and my brother everything that we needed to get to where we wanted to go, whether it was hockey or it was in motorsports or it was school or it was when we were moving on to post secondary. What we wanted to do and our ability to get there was never limited at all by parents. They encouraged us to do whatever we wanted to do throughout school and our careers and our sports and hockey lives. And I think that's been the most empowering thing. And it continues to this day for me. It's their a source of constant empowerment and enablement for me to do the things that I want to do in my life. And I have a couple of kids now myself, and I think that's been one of the big lessons that I've tried to take and apply to them. And then I think aside from that, it's just we grew up in a house with a set of principles that have stood the test of time. And I think many of those principles we've actually become myself as a founder of a company. Like in some sense, your personal principles become imprinted on the company as a way of doing business. And so they've even that's transitioned what was the way our household ran is transitioned in some ways now into the way that our company runs in part.
Was advertising in the family, like with your parents or maybe someone else, or is this something
No.
that you discovered? So you discovered it on your own?
Yes, correct. Yeah.
Okay. What did your parents do?
My mom worked in one of the big banks her entire career. So worked her way up the ladder there and had a very successful career there. And my dad was in the fine home building space, and so he worked building custom homes. And this actually is an important part that layers into our business today. He did like the finishing, the fine carpentry inside of some of that custom home building, and so incredibly detail oriented work that required a lot of focus. It required a lot of, physical like capability, like working with your hands, fine motor skills and that type of thing. Creativity as well, trying to come up with ideas to make spaces beautiful. And we've really taken a lot of that, or I've personally taken a lot of that ethos that he had in his business and what he did and applied it forward into what we do today, and just minding the details of what we do and making sure that we operate tight.
Okay, so I ask all of my guests what their first job ever was, and I get you can usually group them into things like maybe they were wait staff, maybe they worked at a fast food restaurant, maybe it was babysitting, retail. I think you're the first person who was a cook at, can we say that Milestones, like where's Milestones? It's not QSR. Would you say it's upscale?
I think it's gone through a lot of transition over the years since I worked there. Um, sure, you could call it an upper scale sort of chain restaurant. I think, yeah,
Well,
that would be fair.
what brought you to that? What brought you to, I guess, say the restaurant business, and how did you find yourself as one of the cooks?
It's a less glamorous story than you might think. My brother worked there already, and I
Mm.
was having dinner there with my parents, and the general manager of the restaurant walked over to ask how we were doing, and My dad said, "Great, could you just please give my son here a job? He's old enough that he needs a job now." And she was like, "Great, I'll bring out an application. You can do it." And I was like, "I'm not filling this out. I don't want to work here. I have no interest in this." And so I think I scrapped some stuff on the paper, and she called me back and said, "Yeah, you're hired. You start now. You start in a couple of days." And I ended up washing dishes in the restaurant there for a little bit, and got exposure to the food and restaurant business as a whole. And the rest is sort of history. It's become my first passion, actually. Cooking and restaurants and dining is a huge part of my life and who I am.
And you didn't think that would be a passion of yours, would it? Like, you looked at it as a chore going, "Oh my god, what am I doing?" And then at what point did you realize, was it after your first shift cooking that you were like, "I'm really into this. This is something untapped?"
I spent a lot of time, like, I didn't start cooking right away. I could barely make a grilled cheese at that point. I was washing dishes, but I got exposure to those the team that was cooking there, and it was interesting. I found the flow of the dinner service, the intensity was very similar to what I found in sports. The team mentality was very similar to what I found in sports. There were a lot of very colorful and very interesting personalities. There's an element of creativity, I think, in almost everyone who cooks. People who work in kitchens are very hardworking, and so it was just a culmination of things that over time I was like, wow, these people are like really cool and interesting and respectable and hardworking, and what they do is kind of interesting as well. And they would make dinner for me here or there, and I would get a taste of like something that was creative and customized and properly done, and it really just sparked an interest in not just eating for me, but in the whole restaurant business and all the workings behind it.
You know what's really underrated about cooking in general is that you can't have any distractions if you're gonna do it properly. And I
Yeah,
like that. I like that. We don't tap into that enough because there's a lot of jobs you can pull out your phone and look at it every 5 seconds, but when you're in the kitchen, you can't do that at all, especially if, like, you're not even cooking for fun, you're cooking that, like, that's your job.
yeah, absolutely. There's no chance, and what we were doing back then when I did start cooking, that you would have a phone open while you're in the middle of service. Like, there you have, pans on the heat and oil getting hot and the grill is on and all that kind of stuff. You're under it for a little bit. So I really appreciated that intensity and that focus, though. That was a real driver for me. It was like, I use a sports analogy again. It was like you go and you're playing the game. Like, it's an all in thing for a little bit. And I really enjoyed the adrenaline that came alongside that, and I still do, even if it's just, cooking a meal for family or something like that. Once you're getting down to it and you almost have some stuff on the table, you gotta pay attention if you wanna get it right, and I really appreciate that part of it.
What was your favorite dish to make at Milestones, and then what's your favorite dish to make at home for the family?
Um, Milestones, good question. They have a dish there that's, actually, I'm not sure if it's still on the menu. I would really hope it is still on the menu. What's it called? Portobello mushroom chicken. It's just a simple dish. You saute some mushrooms, throw a piece of chicken in there, deglaze it a little bit, add some cream and some herbs and stuff like that. It was like one of the signature dishes at the beginning. It was one of the only ones they're sort of cooking from scratch to order. Um, and I really appreciated that part of it, like making the sauce in the pan, cooking the meat in the pan, the seasoning, all of that. So that was one, and I actually still make that at home from time to time. It's a pretty good dish. At home, I don't know, it's a bit of a non-answer answer maybe, but I really just enjoy. I just spent a bunch of time in France, and I really just enjoy, like, not specific dishes, but rather going to the market and kind of seeing what's going on. If it's a summer in Ontario, you have a wonderful bounty. Seeing what's going on, what looks good, talking to a few people there, and bringing that stuff home, and making a lunch out of whatever is a lunch or a dinner out of whatever was available and whatever looks fresh during that time. So I typically don't target certain recipes or certain dishes. Maybe in the winter a little bit more, but in the summer I try to make it as market driven as possible. That's where the most enjoyment comes from for me.
How did you balance hockey with working in a restaurant? Because those restaurant hours can be pretty late, and hockey can be a pretty early morning sport.
Yeah, I would say that was probably one of the big transitionary points. That's like when I started to get the job. That was the first step of like that's not what I was going to do in my career. It was more of a um, have a job, before you go away to school. And so it was kind of a natural, like, as I slowed down my playing hockey, I picked up, started working more. Thinking back, even I believe I actually stopped playing club hockey and played only high school hockey for the last year. And so it was natural to be able to work more. There was not a whole lot of conflict between my playing hockey and my work. Fortunately, we're also talking a part-time dishwashing job here. It wasn't exactly a huge obligation for me.
I had no idea you were playing hockey on 2 different teams, so the high school team and then a club team as well.
Correct. Yeah.
So we already touched on it a little bit. You moved to London to go to college, to go to Fanshawe College. Take us through, why you picked London and why you picked Fanshawe College, and why did you study business?
Probably a less strategic answer than I would have if the client asked me something today. But really, it was I had some friends in London. It was familiar. Anyone wanted to go away to school somewhere. Fanshawe had a great reputation, still has a great reputation. We actually have an excellent relationship with them at Other. And so there was that culmination of factors that led me to London and Fanshawe specifically. As far as studying business, it was really just, I had a couple of entrepreneurial people that I'd known or people who were in business, so to speak, that I'd known that I was kind of inspired by, but nothing super specific. I wanted to go and I wanted to get some sort of general but not too general education, see how it went, and do it with my friends and enjoy a college experience. And I got all of that and more out of it when it came down to it at the end.
Did you ever consider going the same path as your parents? You mentioned that your mom was in banking and that your dad was, could we say that your dad was the type of carpenter who did a lot of like, you said detail work, like baseboards, crown molding, and stuff like that?
Yeah, exactly, the finer stuff. No, not in particular. Like I didn't have there was no big plan for this is what I'm gonna do, and I wanna follow these footsteps or do this thing or do that thing. College was a discovery exercise for me. It was I've played a lot of hockey. I uh, you know, done not a whole lot other than that, to be honest. Let's go see what else is out there. And so that was business school for me, and I ended up finding my way as a result of what business school offered rather than what I was interested in
And
specifically.
your post-secondary education didn't stop there. You then enrolled in Toronto Metropolitan University. So what made you decide to carry on to university after college?
Yeah, I've got a really, Fanshawe has an excellent digital marketing program, and did back then. They were way ahead of the curve. A lot of applied skills that I learned while I was at Fanshawe. I think, in particular, what they've done is they built out a program that was focused on teaching both SEO and Google Ads to students. And I remember so vividly. The professor, her name is Liz Gray, and she's still there. She's a really, really important part of that. The Fanshawe faculty, and she was of my when I was there as well. I remember so vividly her saying like, "Listen, this is how these ads work. Like you search and it's based on the keyword, and an ad will show up, and Google is built on this entire all of Google is built on this entire model back there." And I was like, "Oh, it's so interesting, it's so smart." And then they taught us the mechanics of it, which is this is how it works, how the auction works. This is how to set up an account, and you do some live demo stuff for some clients. And so I came out of that with some very, very in demand and applied skills that I could essentially take into the workforce right away and be valuable with. But at the same time, I also wanted the university experience. I wanted to go to like a university business school, see what that was like, more on the theory side, diversify my knowledge when it came to business, and also just to further education overall. And so that was the reason I want to go to university. There's a relationship between Fanshawe and TMU that made that possible. And then also my girlfriend at the time, now wife, had moved to Toronto, and so it made logistical sense for us to come here as a result of that.
Reflecting back on your time at both Fanshawe and TMU, do you have any idea, or do you ever look back and go, okay, here are the gaps they filled for each other? Like, here's what TMU filled for Fanshawe, but here's what Fanshawe prepared me for that TMU didn't cover at all in my career.
Yeah. Um, so I would go back to the sort of the very applied on the ground skills that can be used tomorrow was really exceptional at Fanshawe, and continues to be. And so I found that to be incredibly helpful, and I really liked that. But I'm also a student of theory, and in some respect, I really like to read, and specifically, I like to read like nonfiction and business books and that type of stuff. And I would say that was the gap that TMU filled for me. Was it was a lot more theory driven. It was a lot more about understanding the basic the basic mechanics of a business, or the basic mechanics as an example of investing, or things like that. And that's treated me really, really well. So I found them very complementary from a theory side at university, and then a very applied skills time perspective at college. It was an excellent combination.
And your foray into digital marketing after that, that started with, if I got it right, it's Outrider. It was a program set up by Catalyst.
Correct. Well, it was previously, when I started working there, it was called Outrider. I think it had been bought by Group M to be a sort of search marketing wing, and then merged in namesake with an entity out of the U.S. called Catalyst. And so it was the same company, but originally was Outrider, and then it transitioned into being Catalyst, which was this centralized search marketing. When I started there, search marketing um, unit within Group M. And it was a really, really interesting time to enter into that business, and especially to enter into Group M.
How did things change when it was acquired by Group M and rebranded Catalyst? Because if I've got it right, Outrider sounds like it was an independent Canadian agency.
Yeah, it had, so that had happened before I got there.
Okay.
I wasn't part of I wasn't part of any acquisition like that. I was a big part of the blending of Outrider and Catalyst. Outrider was the Canadian brand. Catalyst was the U.S. brand doing the same thing. They had been acquired in a similar strategy, I would assume, in the U.S. And so the blending together was very interesting. You know, starting to think about how we operate in a unified North American way, rather than two assets that had been picked up in separate geographies and were operating separately. And I learned a tremendous amount, and got a really excellent exposure to a lot of the very senior people at Group M and WPP, and those with inside of both Catalyst and Outrider at that time. And I was very, very early in my career. So it was like this cheat code almost that I had, where I was, early in my career learning, just starting to learn the ropes, but also with exposure to, some people with some really excellent long-term experience, and some knowledge and wisdom that, I carry to today for sure.
And a lot of that was rooted in like growth and development as you progress through the company. Like what did all of that entail?
Yeah, so Group M, then I'm not sure if it's still true today, but Group M then was the largest media planning and buying company in the world. They were responsible for almost one in every three ads purchased in the world.
Okay, I had never
Um,
heard that one before. 1 in 3 ads. But when you put it in that when you put it like that, that is huge.
yeah, it was like around 30% market share. So if you express that into number of ads, then it was about one in every three. And so it was a complex engine, and I was at Catalyst, and formerly employed by Catalyst, but also getting a lot of exposure to all of the other agencies that sat inside of there. So MediaCom and Maxis, what was then Maxis, MEC, and Mindshare. I got exposure to all of those, and saw how they built those agencies, the different strengths and weaknesses in each of them, the role that each of them played. And my role was really almost interagency in a sense, given that Catalyst was a centralized unit within them. I got to touch on all of them. And so, again, I worked with the leadership teams of all of them quite extensively, and got exposure to them during that time. And clients in each of them was very interesting as well. So it was a real formative experience. And something, again, this is maybe a theme. There wasn't some big grand plan for me to go in to Group M. I had no idea who they were until I actually was in there and in the role, and it just so happened that as part of my role there, and my development over time, that I was able to get in and kind of see the inside. It's pretty cool.
But that wasn't the only thing keeping you professionally busy. At some point, you also had, could we call it a side hustle, a separate entrepreneurial venture that you were working on as well?
Correct. Yeah. And that was, I'd been working in the background, just using a lot of the skills that had been built at Fanshawe. Um, I wanted to hone those skills. I wasn't doing them day to day inside of cows. I wanted to hone those skills. I have an entrepreneurial nature, I would say. Like I love the idea of building business and growing business. And I was doing actually quite a bit of that inside of Group M, despite the fact that I was early in my career and it was a massive global company. Um, but yeah, I had started, with my now one of my partners, Nick. We, were interested in Meta had just started rolling out ads. We had a little bit of experience in website design and development. Not a lot, excuse me, but enough to be dangerous.
Mm,
Um,
good way of
and
putting it.
so we started started a little company in the background, or we had been working on since we were back in London, and yeah, that ended up being morphing into what we are today. Actually,
So that really planted the seeds for other.
yeah, totally, totally. It was just a small thing back then, but we made a decision at some point. We're young people, and in a um, in a pretty opportune time, like we should either, stop doing this stuff in the background or because it's taking up all of our free time, or we should go all in on it. And so that was 10 years ago and we've gone all in on it and it's been I mean, I'm sure we'll get into it, but it's been quite the ride so far.
Was there a lot of convincing that had to happen between the co-founders to just go all in? Because that is a pretty big step. Like I imagine you had to have a conversation with, was she your wife at the time, still a fiance, girlfriend, and just let her know that like this is the career shift that I'm going to make. And there might be a bit of short-term pain. A lot of entrepreneurs feel that at the beginning, but there's going to be a massive long-term gain, sorry, if this pans out the way we want it to.
Yeah, the notion was always, and I still love this, was that the risk is high, but the stakes are low when you're young.
Uh,
So it's like the risk of failing is high, like, and the chances that you're going to fail are high. But for us at that time, it was the stakes are low. We, didn't have any children, weren't married, didn't have, other than rent, there wasn't really, much else that needed to be taken care of. And so, all of the credit to Nick, who was, the certainly more forceful about it, but that was the notion at that time was if not now, then when? Because there isn't a better time to do it than now. So we came together, and that's when our third partner, Cat, got involved, and um, we got it started. It wasn't a huge consideration. If I think back to that time now, it was yeah, this is the right thing to do. Let's do it.
and why the name Other? And we've got to say that Other is spelt with a period at the end.
Yes. Why the name Other? So we found um, in our time in the industry, whether it was the stuff that we were doing ourselves or things that we would hear from clients throughout the agency work that we were doing, that um, the level of dissatisfaction among clients was often fairly high. And not every client. There were lots of clients that were very happy, but there were many that were dissatisfied with what they were getting. And then there's a secondary notion, which was all agencies are the same. And I think it still exists in some capacity. We still hear it, I would say, fairly frequently. And so our response to that was, well, people are dissatisfied and they're just going down the list of like, oh, this agency is the same as this agency, is this agency, is this agency. If only there was an other option that we could go to
Mm.
that did things a little bit differently, then, wouldn't that be a fantastic thing for us and for the market? And so we started out at the beginning, saying, what are the things that we are going to do and we're not going to do that are going to make us other? And, I'm really proud 10 and a half years later that those things that we decided to do at the beginning of the business are still the way that we do business today. There's been no change. And I do feel like that genuinely makes us other. So that's the story, the explanation of the name. But we really wanted to put some substance behind it. And I feel like we've delivered on that the last 10 years.
You just mentioned that, I guess at a high level, you guys have kept things pretty consistent the last 10 years, but what really, like, what have been the big changes though from say day one, 10 years ago to today?
I think there's a couple of different angles I could take there. The entrepreneurial angle is at the beginning, you're responsible for all of the work. So you come in and you bring on a new client or you start a new relationship, and all of the work is yours, which is great in a sense that your ability to control the output and control the quality and control the delivery of that work is 100%. It's all on you. But it's obviously, the downside is your capacity is limited. And so you can only bring in as much business and as much growth as you can actually service. Um, and then, you start to go through this transition of bringing on your first team member. And now, you're giving up a little bit of that control in the work, but you're getting time back that you can do other things in exchange. And so this is a 10-year transition. We're a team of about 50 now. And so it's just been these small exchanges of, okay, we bring capable hands on board, give them the resources, the methodology that they need to be successful. And then that will get us a little bit of time so that we can start thinking about, or we can continue to think about what's the next challenge on the horizon. So the entrepreneurial one is really that transition from being in the work, doing the work, to getting out of the work and being focused on the business and the development of the business and staying competitive. And then, I mean, you've been running the podcast here for a long time. Like the changes in the industry are innumerable.
Mm.
It's not even close to the space that it was 10 years ago when we think about the external factors that we've dealt with.
Matt, this has been a fantastic chat. Before we bring it home, if anyone wants to get in touch with you or learn more about Other, what's the best way they can do that?
Yeah, I'd be happy to connect with anybody on LinkedIn. That's probably the easiest way to do it. If you want to reach out just generally, hello@weareother.ca is the best way to get in touch with us. And we do a lot of networking. We do a lot of talking to people and building relationships. And so I'd be happy to talk to anybody who's interested in us, our story, or what we do.
Perfect. Okay, we're going to put all of those links on screen. People have probably already seen them by now. All right, let's close things out. You ready for rapid fire questions?
Let's do it.
All right, the campaign you're most proud of.
Campaign I'm most proud of. We're a very results and business outcomes oriented organization. And so we really focus, I would say, on building engines for our clients that deliver them results on an ongoing basis. We're not a huge campaign based organization. We have certainly done some great ones, but I would say the engines that what I'm most proud of are a lot of the always on acquisition engines that we've built for our clients. We have clients that were barely doing any digital 5 years ago, or barely doing any media, and now they're consistently getting 80% of their leads online, 365 days a year. And I think there's nothing more value adding that you could do as an agency partner than to build a capability that allows your clients to grow in that way. And so those are the ones that I'm really proud of, not necessarily the idea led flash in the pan sort of stuff, but the real value building engines has been fantastic.
Your favorite movie?
Um, I don't actually watch movies, strangely enough. For people who know me, they will probably know that I get asked this question all the time, and it's immediately followed by like, I know, but not even this movie, or not even that movie, or not even this one. And it's like, no, I don't watch movies. I don't know what it is. I ever since I was growing up, I didn't have a lot of interest in movies, and so I genuinely do not have a favorite one.
All right, this is going to cause a knock on effect for the next two questions. So, if Hollywood were to make a movie based on your life story, who would you want to play you?
It's the knock-on effect will be real here because I don't know more than a handful of Hollywood actors. I would say if I go on and build something here that is worthy of any sort of Hollywood actor to play my role, I would be very happy with that.
You're giving off Bradley Cooper vibes with your look. I'll be honest with you. You are. Go, Kay. If you want a movie to watch, go watch Limitless by starring Bradley Cooper. I think that movie's about 14, 15 years old. Yeah.
Victor, I would love to promise to you that I'm going to do that, but my track record is not good on
All
that
right.
front.
Okay, so the next knock on question. So if Hollywood were to make that movie based on your life story, what would you call it?
What would I call it? I don't know. The theme here has been sort of finding your way, rather than having something big and by design. Which is a little bit counterintuitive. That's not really how we operate now. Like I would say the the business is actually very much has a structured plan and a structured way of working. So I don't know. I would have to finding my way would be the earlier chapters of the movie or sections of the movie, scenes, whatever you might call it, and then something a little more structured in the back half. So far,
All right. Movies are usually broken up in acts. Let me throw that one out there for you.
okay, I will remember that.
I'm a big movie buff. I got to bring you into the fold. Come on over to the dark side. But
People do tend to look down on me for this. It's something that I'm very aware of. You're
no,
not the first one,
I'm
and I
not looking
understand.
down on not looking down on you. I'm saying it's a wonderful opportunity because there's so much out there for you to consume. Be- So, anyways, okay, let's jump into the next one. Your favorite book.
I have a lot of books, like I said earlier, a lot of favorites. Like I said before, I read quite a bit. Um, there are a couple. One I would say um, that I would highlight is called The Choice, and The Choice is about, without going into too much detail or um, you know breaking it open for somebody who still wants to read it. It's a tale from a Holocaust survivor. Her name is Dr. Edith Eger, and it's all about how you respond to certain circumstances. So, when you're left with nothing or you have very difficult situations, the only thing that you are in control of is how you actually choose to respond to that, to that, um, whatever's happening to you in that moment. And I've taken a ton of strength and insight from that. So that's been a really excellent book. I really like the books from Ray Dalio. I find them to be prescient, especially when you go back and read them and think about the things that have happened since he predicted that they would happen. Those are fantastic. There's another one that's not so well known called Trillion Dollar Coach, which is a gentleman in the Bay Area who coached a lot of the big Silicon Valley executives, but is like a relatively unknown entity. That one is excellent. And then I'll have actually one final one here, which is I restaurants and dining is a huge passion of mine. And there's a restaurant in New York City called 11 Madison Park that has been named the best restaurant in the world previously. And the gentleman who runs the hospitality side of 11 Madison Park, formerly, he's actually not there anymore. His name is Will Guadara. And he just released a book not too long ago called Unreasonable Hospitality. It's a fantastic read for anybody in any service business. You don't need to be in hospitality to enjoy that one. It's really a ton of lessons from somebody who really reached the pinnacle of service. And so I have that one actually on my desk at the office and look at it weekly.
Your favorite song.
That's I think that's similar to what's your favorite dish? Tough to tell. It's contextual. If you're on a dock at a cottage, it's tragically hip. If you're in a basement bar in Toronto somewhere, maybe it's the Rolling Stones, something like that. So, but I would say typically if I'm going to throw something on, it's going to be like some Canadian rock type of thing. The hip, Blue Rodeo, maybe some bands based in Toronto, that kind of stuff. I really love Canadian music and always have.
The best advice you have ever received.
Um, a lot of it. I have a lot of excellent mentors who have helped me along the way. I think the one that has probably stuck with me the longest, it's one of the principles of our organization. I'm not even sure where it came from, to be honest, but it's always play offense.
Mm.
Um, don't and it's connects back to a sports upbringing. Um, I think that just the notion of take initiative, like own things, take accountability, um, and take control of things. Don't sit back and let the world come to you. Go and get after it, and be on offense. And we say internally that the number one reason that clients become dissatisfied with their agency, just pulling it back to the business for a second, is they're like, yeah, my agency's great. They're just not proactive. They don't go above and beyond, and they don't like bring us new stuff. And what a reason for a client to become dissatisfied, right? It's just be proactive, play offense, build the future yourself, like take control. And so that's one of the principles of our organization, and it's something that I hold like pretty deeply as a personal principle and inside of the company.
If you could go back in time and give your younger self advice, what would you say?
um, Start earlier and go faster. And like, I know hindsight is 2020, but I feel actually very fortunate that I did start the company very early. That has been very helpful throughout my career. Um, there's so much. I don't know why you spend so much time like waiting around. Just get after it. Start making things happen. There's so much opportunity when you're going through post-secondary. There's so much opportunity in your early career. And I think if you're gonna do something, do it now. Like don't wait. What's the point of waiting? I think there's a lot of opportunity gets passed up by people who are waiting for something. And um, so if I could go back, I would say, yeah, move faster and make decisions more quickly.
My signature closing question: if you weren't in media and marketing, what would you be doing and why?
Probably um, at the expense of many other areas of my life. I would probably be cooking professionally. That would be my uh, what I would want to be doing. It's just my first passion. It's the thing that I enjoy doing the most. And I've also people say like don't turn your hobby into a job sometimes, but I've done it
Mm.
professionally, and there are elements of doing it professionally that I actually enjoy more than doing it at home. The team element and the intensity and the focus and the creativity, all of that. And so, yeah, that would probably be it. But it's also I have plenty of friends who are in that world, and it's not easy when you think about the hours, the time commitment, and all of those things. It's not an easy business to be in, but I've really enjoyed my time doing it, and maybe in another stage of life, I'll have an opportunity to do it again.
And we're going to end things right here. Matt, thanks so much for stopping by today.
Thank you, Victor. I really appreciate your time.